mystical, so unpredictable, here on the SNL network.
Yes, so welcome on in, everybody, to the Saturday Night Network here for this patron feedback show for week number 7, talking about the Keke Palmer and SZA episode of Saturday Night Live and previewing the upcoming Steve Martin and Martin Short episode. I can't wait to talk about that. We had a very fun midweek promo that came out today, so I'm sure we'll talk about that among other things as we answer your questions tonight on the patron feedback show. That's what this show is. We get to talk with our biggest supporters of the podcast each and every week and answer your questions, which you can always send in via our social media. And this week we got a ton of questions. I'm so excited to answer them with some great guests tonight. So up first, let me introduce my man, Carlos Rodella. Carlos, how are you?
What's up?
I'm good. What's up with you?
From the Budweiser commercial from the 90s? I don't know. How you doing? I'm good. I'm ready to talk about SNL.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I should what's up with you. If
you could what's up back. You could, and then it would be less awkward.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. There you go. Casey has it. For the first time on the podcast in season 48, this guy goes back to the beginnings of everything we did here in the SNL Stats days. It's so great to get to talk to my friend Casey Killingsworth. Casey, how are you?
I'm great, John. Thanks for asking. It's good to be finally back on the SNL network doing the patron feedback thing. You might notice a couple things different. I may look different and sound different because I'm on my phone due to some audio glitches with my computer. Let me see if I look. This might look better, but
I think you look great.
Yeah, this will be the way to go. And
the way you had it, that was perfect. Yeah,
and I'm usually on these like an hour later, but tonight. Tonight I'm on at 7 my time, 9 your guys' time. I started a new job about 6 months ago where I don't work as long hours, so it allows me time to come home and time to be on this show earlier. So I'm sure that's easier on John's schedule, and the job does keep me pretty busy. I work shorter hours, but I'm kind of mid commute. When the Monday and Wednesday and Thursday night shows are going on. So that's why I've only been in the last minutes on Saturdays. But yeah, things have been going
whatever
great.
We can get from you, Casey. We're happy to have you. So just thrilled to have you back on the show.
I'm happy to be here. And now that I've updated you guys on my personal life, let's get started with the rest of the show.
Yeah, very excited to do that. And you might be saying to yourself, patron feedback show on a Wednesday night. Why is that happening? Well, yes, I was not available to do the patron feedback show tomorrow. So Mike Murray and Nicole decided to swap the shows for this week. So we're going to have our By the Number show tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And Nicole will actually be out for that one. So it'll be Mike and Sammy K hosting together and having special guest Jamie Burwood from TV Show Graphs on that show. So they'll go through all the numbers of the week and start to talk about some really fun numbers related to what's coming up this week with Steve and Marty. But before we get into the questions tonight, we'd love to sort of check in on the season so far and how you guys are feeling. Carlos, we heard from you earlier in the season, so I'll probably just go to Casey first on this one. Casey, how have you felt about season 48 through 7 episodes?
I felt pretty good about it. I like that we're sort of tiptoeing into a new era. I know some people have said, oh, we got a new cast, new logos, no intros, everything. And it seems to some people say, oh, these are just cosmetic changes and the show is going to be the same, but they're, experimenting with different types of hosts, like we saw with Brendan Gleeson and to some extent Megan Thee Stallion. There's been, a bit rocky. I mean, Chappelle's a pretty divisive guy, no doubt about that. He did some strong sketches, but his monologue was a little iffy. But I'm pulling for season 48 so far, and it's December, so we're at the point where in each new era where they really establish themselves with this one memorable sketch. Like this is the point in season 21, I believe, where Will Ferrell bought us Wake Up and Smile, and with Sarah Sherman on the show, there's plenty of potential for another spiritual successor to Wake Up and Smile. And like this is a point in season 31 where Andy Samberg gave us Lazy Sunday, and to slightly lesser extent, Dick in a Box in terms of just establishing new cast. But yeah, I'm excited because it's a real make or break point of the season, and we're finally getting some real solid hosts that are going to contribute a lot to the season. Hosts that are exciting, people want to see, and yeah, I think there's nowhere else to go from here but up in terms of SNL season 48. So we're all pulling for you here.
I love that. And I sort of feel that all of the featured players, we're watching them very closely through the next 2 episodes to see what they're going to put together per Casey's, got comments on the season. This is exactly the time where we might get something very special. And I did feel like we sort of got something really cool from Sarah last week. Maybe it wasn't exactly, the Dick in the Box level or Lazy Sunday or Wake Up and Smile, as Casey says, but still, that was something pretty big that I guess we'll talk about when we answer our questions. But Carlos, how have you felt since we last spoke to you about the season?
Yeah, I think I definitely am like pulling for him, just like all of us here on the show. It's exciting. It's weird. The whole season's been kind of, a jumbled mess of things. Mess is the wrong word. That sounds negative. But it's just been different. Like each episode feels different from each episode. And that can be a good thing because like Casey's saying, like they're shaking it up. I actually like the new graphics a lot. And I like the new cast. And, I'm just interested. My heart is with Sarah every time she does anything. And so it is fun to see her do some breakout sketches and stuff like that, and the news desk thing just last week. But yeah, I feel like each episode's a little different. And like even like last episode, we got that weird stuntman one. What is that? The Forsington's Ridge or something?
Yes, Forsington's Ridge.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I haven't really. Someone else in the comments, which we'll talk about later in the show, said like they'd seen that before, but I don't remember seeing something in that particular way. So yeah, short answer is I like it. I'm just it's peculiar. It's a little peculiar.
Okay. Well, why don't we get into some questions that we got this week? And then we're going to have throughout the questions, Carlos and Casey will talk about some of the sketches from the week as well. So we got a ton of questions this week, and I want to make sure we get to answer all of them. And so let's get started on these, gentlemen. And we will take our first question, which comes in from our friend Monette Marati. And Monette would like to know, should SNL continue on the trend of not doing music video sketches every episode, except when they have the right host, compared to something like last season, where it felt like there was one every single show? So this week we had Big Boys come out, which feels like the first music video we've had in a while, written by and starring Punky Johnson and other members of the cast. But Punky was a very big part in creating this, and along with Vanessa Jackson and Streeter Seidel as well this week. And this was, had the SZA hook, had all the feels of the great music videos of SNL past. So let's tackle the sketch and Monette's question and talk about, should SNL be doing these as much as possible, or is every now and then the right amount of time? Carlos, I'll start with you on this one first.
Yeah, for one thing, I can't stop singing the song. I mean, come on. It's catchy. As the kids say, it slaps. All right. It definitely slaps. Or I would say it's fire. And so anyways, it's super catchy. I loved it immediately. It's playing in my head right now. I will not try to sing it. But
Please
I
do.
liked it. Okay. Is it a big boy? You need a big boy and a big boy.
That's pretty good.
And I will never do that again. But I like it when it makes sense. To answer the question from Monette, I think it makes sense in this context. I also like it when like the music artist who's involved in it, like, jumps in and gets involved in it, and you're like not normally seeing them in kind of a funny role. Like they might just be the musical guest, but now they're in like a sketch. And usually you hear the crowd, with a SZA, the same thing. The crowd's like, whoa, they're in it. That's a big deal for them. So I like it when it makes sense. So I agree that it shouldn't just be every episode, but I do like them a lot, when they nail them. And so for me, it's about the artist. I feel like if you have a great artist that's on that night for musical guest and they're involved in it, it lifts it up a bit. You know what I mean?
Casey, what do you think? Should SNL be doing these very often, or is this something that we really need a special host and maybe a musical guest for?
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with Matt that they should do these just with the right hosts and the right musical guests. I mean, I feel like they're moving in the right direction with only just doing it with the right people, because we're coming out of the era where it's like every week with we got one with Pete Davidson and Chris Red and Kenan and whoever the male host was that week, and they all obviously had secret aspirations of being rappers or R&B singers in case this whole comedy thing didn't work out. And yeah, it's like we got them like every week, and they kind of felt forced at times. But yeah, I'm glad that I don't mind if they keep doing music videos, music pre-tapes, but as long as we're moving out of the era where it's like the same three cast members each time doing them, as long as they're giving us something different, then yeah, I'm fine with it. I mean, I feel like the only two music videos I remember us getting this season were the Big Boys, which didn't really land with me, but it was Big Boys and We Got Bought with Megan Thee Stallion. And it's like her and Jack Harlow are the types of people that they should keep doing these music videos with, and yeah, just keep doing them with different cast members. So as long as they're giving us something different each time, they can do as many music videos as they want or don't want. It's as long as they're bringing something new to the table.
I agree. I mean, for me, I think it's less about the host or the musical guest as much as it is about when do you have a really good concept and when should it be a music video. I think in the days of The Lonely Island, the era that I really just fell in love with, and I myself personally was making my own music videos at the time. Like in high school, that was my thing. I loved, we made so many music videos. That was our video projects, and The Lonely Island were such big inspirations for that. But we're not in that era anymore. Like now everybody's creating TikToks all the time and has their ability to produce music videos. So it's not as like novel of a concept to be able to produce a music video. So you have to really pick your moments in terms of having the right concept for one. And I think if you think about the ones that are successful since the time of The Lonely Island, it's ones like, Do It in My Twin Bed or Back Home Ballers. Or in this case, I actually think this is a great example of Big Boys, where you have like a unique concept and it's probably relevant to like maybe a certain time of the year, and they have something like fresh that they want to put out, and doing it as a music video is a good opportunity. I think that the ones that didn't work probably over the last few years as much is when we walked away being like, okay, like the rap was good, but like, why are they rapping about that? Like, what does, what does walking in Staten have to do with anything? So it's like, that's the type of thing that I think you have to pick and choose your moments. Carlos, you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with Nick in the chat too about Punky, because she killed it in that rap. Oh my goodness. I was like so excited for her to come out and be like, just destroy it. It has to be a funny concept, or like if we all relate to it and then it's like also a song, then it's like, oh, cool. Like this is a song about the thing that I can relate to.
Yeah. Casey, did you like the sketch overall though? You like Big Boys?
It seems like the type of thing that would grow on me if I watched it more, but I haven't felt the need to watch it more. Like I said, it just didn't. I'm clearly not a big boy. It didn't really. I mean, I like this season. I like We Got Bought more than Big Boys, but yeah, they're learning to use Pete and Red and Kenan as less as crutches since they're gone. Now they're figuring out, okay, what other cast members can assist the host in these music videos. And so far they seem comfortable with the women. I mean, like Cecily, all the women in the cast, they give us a different take on just the music videos in general. All the women's ones have been about something different. So I think that's a direction they should keep going in.
Also, John, we got to see some of those music videos you just talked about. I need to see those at some point.
I'll tell you where to find them.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be a great summer or off week thing, just all of John's music videos.
Sorry, I had to bring it up.
Maybe when we get to SNL Network 1000, that will be the 1000th episode of this podcast down the road. But all right. We'll see. Yeah, we're climbing up there. So let's take this next question from our friend Ike Moore. Ike said that John, I said on the roundtable that I was wondering if the Kenan and Kelly sketch was a sign that Kenan was leaving this season. If that becomes true, do you think his send off will be a bigger deal than Wig leaving or even the finale that we had last season? This is a big question. Again, in case you missed it on the roundtable, I really felt like, having Kel Mitchell on the show was the coup d'etat for Kenan to basically, this is his ultimate moment. This is the final thing that's left on the bucket list. And perhaps maybe if we get a Kel Mitchell hosted season finale, that will be the sign that Kenan is departing the show. So, Casey, what do you think of that? And what do you think of Ike's question where he says, if this is the departure for Kenan coming up, will it be the biggest departure that we've had in the history of the show?
I mean, you would think so, and ideally, yes, considering he's been on 20 years. I mean, he's been the longest tenured cast member ever. So you would think they're planning something big. But again, it's mid-season, and if they're planning the Kenan and Kelly sketch to be his big send-off for his last year, that obviously would have been closer to May. So I think he has pretty much hinted that he's trying to make it to 20 years at least before he leaves, and I believe this would be his 20th season. So I think this is probably the right time for Kenan and some other cast members to maybe leave. We'll get to the other ones later. But yeah, I think it would make sense for Kenan to leave, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was his last season. But I think we're halfway through the season, and if they're planning a finale for him, it must be something much bigger than just a Kenan and Kel reunion. Or maybe he just doesn't. Maybe he wants that Irish goodbye that Cecily says she wants. But it's up to him how. I mean, the show should send him off how he sees fit. But I'm interested to see what bigger and more eventful things he would want to do to stretch out his last season, his season long goodbye. So let's see what they give us in May if he does announce that this is his last season. Like a cold open for him for sure, like they gave Kate and whatever character that would be. Maybe a last what up with that sketch where they really go all out. But
I was gonna say that, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably his biggest thing. But yeah, just I'd wait and see what they want Kenan's big finale to be at this point.
Yeah, if they did another what up with that and they had Lindsey Buckingham and then Kel Mitchell and then Finesse Mitchell, maybe we got someone cooking there for the final sketch, but that would be fun. Carlos, what do you think of this question that we got here from Mike?
Yeah, to finish that though, what up with that with Lindsey Buckingham, and he actually interviews him this time. He actually talks to him. That would be perfect. And it's Bill Hader, right? So it's like that would be a good one. I don't think he's leaving till 50. I think he alluded to it in an interview. He was talking about Lyonne, about him staying. And I don't know. Again, I just kind of read into it, but he said 50 would be a good time to stop. So if he says 50 would be a good time to stop, I'm thinking that he's going to be there for a little while longer. And by the way, they have such a full cast. He doesn't have to be on every single thing for the next couple of years. So mark my words, I think he's staying until 50. And that's an awesome send off to be like, he did it. He made it to the end of 50. And that's like a big, round number. I think that it's going to be a different send off. It'll be amazing and probably emotional. And I think we'll see emotion from him. It's going to be different than Wig because Wig is one of my favorite send-offs ever. And I was crying. And it was Mick Jagger and it was our cast. John and I are super fans of Fred and Bill and Jason and stuff. So that was very, very special. But it'll be very special in its own right. And I think it'll be emotional. I think it'll be what up with that. And I think it's season 50.
Yeah, and let me be very clear about this. I am a huge fan of Kenan Thompson, and on Saturday Night Live, I would love to see him stay as really just as long as he wants to at this point. But I would prefer he leaves now than in season 50. I think that, for the guy who's put in 20 years, who's been statistically the most accomplished person in the history of the show, monumentally, probably one of the greatest cast members ever. And we'll really have to stack that up, as time goes by. And once he's no longer on the show, how his career really compares beyond longevity to some of the other greats. But I think he should go now because I think that we'll have the opportunity to celebrate him more now than we would in 50. I think that he would get overshadowed by the 50th celebrations, all the comebacks, all the hosts that we want to see potentially return for that season. I think now there's an opportunity potentially at the end of this season to invite all the friends of Kenan Thompson, all the great cast members throughout his 20 years on the show to come back and celebrate him. I think this is probably it would be more of a spectacle now than I think it would be at season 50. And there's nothing to say that he can't return and host during season 50 if that's something that he wants to do. So that's just my take on it. And to answer Ike's question directly, I do think it would be a freaking huge goodbye, probably as big as Chris and Wiggs.
Yeah, no, that makes sense because 50, being overshadowed, that would be kind of tough because it's already like so much stuff is going on for 50, but well, we'll see.
Yeah, and to just piggyback off what you guys were saying real quick. Yeah, I read that interview and I kind of took it to mean he doesn't want to be there without Lorne because he was saying, oh, without Lorne, NBC can just get in another producer and they can mess with this new producer, mess with the budget. He literally said it wouldn't be worth it because it wouldn't be the same show he spent 2 decades of his life on. So I think, it would be best for Kenan to leave this season, and then maybe season 50 he could host, and then if they do a 50th anniversary special, like the 40th, 25th, they probably will, they could have his own special tribute segment. Here's to Kenan, the longest serving cast member in SNL history. So I think that would be more befitting of his legacy. And I'm going to add, Carlos, that I'd say Bill Hader and Fred Armisen definitely top my list of cast member departures that brought me to tears. That's that for me.
Yeah. Wait, let me piggyback one more time, and then this question will never be over. But I would say this though too, as someone who makes comedy every single day, when you're somewhere where you would really enjoy it, and I'm like trying to get to that place right now and get a cast of people I can work with, it's all of what we're saying is easier said than done because it's like, you hear the stories all the time and people are like, I miss it, when they're gone. And to leave and go like, well, I can't be with my friends and play anymore. That's all I'm saying. Like, that's not as easy as a decision sometimes, I think, because what a treat to be able to be in that spot.
For sure. Okay, let's transition while we're talking about Kenan over to this next question from Thomas. And we talked about, this grandiose potential monumental event that we can get one day from Kenan. But Thomas wants to know, there has been some chatter among SNL fans this season that Kenan seems to be checked out. Have you noticed this at all? Do you think this could be just a case of viewer fatigue? So obviously this is Thomas's perspective and what he's seeing among online chatter, people feeling that Kenan's checked out a little bit. Casey, do you agree? Have you seen this at all?
I mean, the only hints of this or shades of this I've seen was it's like he doesn't seem to care as much about like barely keeping himself from breaking or laughing out. You can tell he's a pro about not doing it, but you can tell he's obviously trying not to do it when he does it. Like the courtroom sketch in Amy Schumer when they start singing Midnights, but it's not Taylor Swift. It's fun. That jumps out at me. He was about to crack up there. And also his, can we talk about his Herschel Walker impression? Because I think this will be the last time that we can, because
sure.
I'd say he doesn't seem to be giving his all to that, because I think he's on our side with the Herschel Walker thing where, someone's got to play him. I guess it's got to be me, but I think he might agree with us that the real Herschel Walker is just so ridiculous. He's already a unintentional parody of himself that he doesn't need Kenan or anyone to play him. Like we don't need more jokes about Herschel Walker. The man's already a walking joke anyway. And I just heard he lost that election, so so we won't be seeing so much of that just silliness and stupidity overload from him. But yeah, I am starting to see sort of some of the cracks in the facade that he was talking about. So maybe, and people can only do that so long before they can, they physically age out of the whole hectic 6 days to week, long hours air, like Andy Samberg talked about that once. So yeah, I think the cracks are starting to show, and again, it would probably be best for him to leave, not just for his own sake, not just for his career's sake. So I definitely see what Thomas is saying there.
Okay, Carlos, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I really don't as much. I feel like, you're this long in. You definitely deserve the ability to break more. It's like it's fine. You didn't break a million times in a row. And the other thing is he has that production company, right? Like
Yeah.
he's doing a ton of stuff outside of the show, including creating another show and on it. So I think he if some of it comes across, it's just like anybody else at a job. You're like, yeah, they were tired, and that might be the case for a couple of things I've seen him in. I think the Herschel Walker case, they shouldn't have had Herschel Walker in that sketch. Oh, sorry. They shouldn't have had him in that sketch. I just like there's no joke there, almost to your point, Casey. There's like, we get it. It's already he's a joke. It's not I'm not being political, but it's just like he's already like it's ridiculous the things he says. So that's it. Like it's like you don't need to do that sketch. So I think that's the only reason why he didn't work in that sketch. There was nothing really to say. But the short answer is I don't see his energy dipping really. I think every once in a while and at some night he might be tired from doing a million other things. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't really see it, to be honest. I think if anything, like I could criticize maybe the fact that he hasn't had like a lead role in particular in any sketch, maybe besides the Herschel Walker stuff. So, and even then, would we say that's a lead role or anchoring any particular sketch? Probably not. So I would say that's the only thing that maybe in this season he's sort of taken a step back on, which I'm okay with. And then, as far as like sketches overall, he's been in 32 by my count so far this season. That's the most of anybody. So it seems that, and if Cecily was there for the entire season, just she'd be on pace at least to top her, to top Kenan. So I would say it's, pretty much been in the most sketches this season, being written for by everybody as far as people are concerned, especially when you have young people on the cast that you're trying to integrate into the show. What's the best thing to do? Write them in a sketch with Kenan, who's an ultimate pro, to help guide them and learn how to be a good sketch, have the ability to do sketches. So for me, I'm not seeing it. I think he's just been the ultimate chameleon that he's always been his entire time at the show, which is adapting to the circumstance of what the show needs from him. And I think we are going to see some really fun moments from him, similar to we got like that home video sketch last season, which was like one of, to me, like an all-time great Kenan sketch that we got in season 47, his 19th year at the show. I think we'll get one or two of those this year. And then for the rest, he's going to be a B player in a bunch of sketches and just continue to push the sketch forward.
Well, that's actually a really good point because he's not doing what up with that, right? Like he's not doing, like you said, like these breakout moments. And so we're going like, well, he's just phoning it in, but he's not. He's just, like you said, another B or C role that he's just kind of fulfilling. So I think once we see him in a more breakout moment, then we can test that energy. But I think it's there.
Yeah. As Steve Martin would say, he's not going to phone it in. Okay.
No.
Let's take this next question from Haley McLaughlin. Haley would like to know, I feel, and this is Haley speaking, I feel like Mikey Day is getting used more or used differently so far this season. I can't quite explain it, but I feel like it's signaling the end of his time as a cast member. Does anyone else feel this way, or is it just me? So, Carlos, what do you think? Has Mikey been used differently this season?
I don't know. I maybe a little bit in some sketches. A lot of these questions, foreshadowing, are about people leaving. And again, this is what's going to happen when you've been on the show for a long time. I will say this. I love Mikey Day. And he does play a similar role lots of times, a lot of straight man, like just blown away by whatever's happening. Like, you're talking about what now? What? Like, that's like a standard. So I get a little tired of just having him be in that role. So if he gets to get more things now, especially even before he leaves, in quotes, that's great. But in particular question, I don't think I've seen him in a ton of different things. I feel like I've seen him in a lot of things that I would think he should be in, like that role.
Yeah. Can I just make an interesting call before I go to Casey? I wouldn't mind if Mikey decided to leave the cast and stayed on as a writer. I wouldn't hate that.
Interesting.
Yeah. I really wouldn't like. I don't know if that's. It's hard to think of like scenarios in modern days where people have done stuff like that. But I wouldn't mind if he stayed on as a writer and sort of just like let the younger people come in after this year. Casey, thoughts on that? And to Haley's question.
Well, I mean, Mikey Day has Mikey Day and his writing partner, Streeter Seidel, they have such distinct comedic voices that we've kind of seen to the point of some fans I know have just gotten sick of just these wacky town Mikey and Streeter sketches that maybe, I'd more like to see, some other newer writers just fill that role and maybe let Mikey leave the show entirely and move on to his next thing. And I was to Carlos's first point, I was gonna say I'd say he's being used differently because I can't remember a sketch this season where he's just reacted incredulously to the weirdness of his surroundings. I've seen other cast members do that, so maybe they know he's leaving and they're testing the waters to see who's going to be the next Mikey reacts or Kenan reacts, who's the best reactor to weirdness in the cast. But I do think Mikey Day is leaving, and I think he wants to leave, but I have my own separate theory about it that you may have seen if you may have read this on my blog when if you read my Jack Harlow review, but the fact that they bought back Tom Hanks and Bobby Moynihan mainly to do another David S. Pumpkin sketch. I mean, maybe Jack Harlow just said he wanted that, but the fact that they did that signals to me that maybe Mikey just wants to, maybe he's reflecting, maybe he wants to, bookend his SNL career. He knows David S. Pumpkins. He wrote that with Streeter, and he knows that's the biggest hit out of all the sketches he's written. So maybe he wants to reflect a bit. You pull out maybe this season will be Mikey Day's greatest hits, and he wants to bookend.
Oh, interesting.
So if we see maybe Larry David come back for another Kevin Roberts sketch, or maybe J-Lo or Margot Robbie come back, or some other attractive female host do one more Matt Schatt sketch, I think we'll all see those and think, hey, maybe Casey was onto something here before Mikey announces his departure. And also maybe it's like he thinks, well, the people he came up with and used to work with a lot, Alex Moffat's gone, Melissa Villaseñor's gone. It's like every group of three, there's one straggler stays behind that one season. Spade was one of them, David Spade, and I think Mikey is another. And we'll get to a third one that I know is the straggler of their group later. But yeah, I think Mikey is recognizing his time to leave because he's been there like 6 years as a cast member and 9 if you count when he was a writer. So he doesn't really want to pull Kenan numbers. I don't think he wants to, quit while he's ahead. So I think it is Mikey's time to leave, and he recognized that and wants to move on, but wants to reflect.
Dude, Kevin Roberts, I'm sorry. You brought it up, and as soon as you did, all I heard is, "Can a bitch get a donut?" And said that in chat. Oh my goodness, I love Kevin Roberts.
Yeah, I think that is true. So both things could be true. He could be headed towards a departure at the end of the season, but also I know that when the David S. Pumpkins thing happened during the Harlow episode, that did happen fairly organically. Like it wasn't just, okay, this is, starting to become the Mikey departure. It just so happens, I believe that Tom Hanks's wife was in town for a performance, and Tom called Lauren and was like, by the way, I'm around this week if you needed anything from me, because they were in New York. So, and then it's just sort of was like, hey, Tom Hanks is here, let's get Bobby. And then they just put it together. But I don't know that they were like, okay, this is going to be like part of the constructed plan for Mikey for this season. So both things could be true. It'd be interesting to follow as we keep going.
I'll say this before we leave this question. I would love to see Mikey Day, kind of to the point we've been talking about, be writing, and like Tim Robinson did, which is one of my favorite shows I bring up every episode, I Think You Should Leave, which everybody in chat should go watch. He could do a show like that with his writing partner, like in a second, and I'd watch the crap out of that. So
okay, Let's move on and take this question from Eric Goding. Eric would like to know, did we get too much Cecily Strong this week? It seemed to me that she mostly served to elevate Kiki, but she was in almost every sketch, so I'm sure others will feel differently. All right. Carlos, I'll start with you on this one. What do you think? Did we get too much of Cecily this week?
I mean, it's impossible for me to ever get too much of Cecily. That's the first question, or answered. First statement. The second thing is, I didn't think she should have been in the ultrasound sketch at all. At all. It really didn't make sense to me. Just to have that weird reaction that she can do at the end, I was like, and she was kind of breaking the whole time, which is kind of fun. But so that's the only time maybe people are seeing that going like, did we have too much of her? Because I don't think she should have been in that sketch. But besides that, no, because again, we don't know when she's leaving either. And so I'd rather just have as much as I can of her right now. Again, if the sketch makes sense. So yeah, it's like 2 answers, because if the sketch doesn't make sense, like the ultrasound one, I don't think we needed her in that.
Yeah, let me also combine this question from our friend Curly Joe as well. And then Casey, I'll go to you for the answers on both. Curly wants to know, has Cecily run her course? The general consensus among everyone except her diehard fans was that Forcington's Ridge was very tired and something we have seen many times. So from Eric, did we get too much Cecily? And Curly wants to know, has Cecily run her course on the show? Casey, what are your thoughts?
I mean, like I was saying, I think maybe Cecily has run her course, but I would be kind of indifferent on her leaving, because I've always really liked Cecily. I've never really had a problem with her as a cast member. The only thing I can say that's even slightly critical is that I'm not a big fan of the overly campy stuff she would do that guys like James Anderson and Ken Supplett would write, because I'm not the audience for that, and her and Bowen do a lot of that stuff together that I'm not big on. I mean, yeah, Cecily's done a lot of great performances. She's pretty solid and reliable, and Bowen, on his own, has done a lot of great, borderline absurdist stuff. But I can only take so much of them together. But I think this week. I think she was just used a lot because she just gelled the most with the host, Keke, and I think it was just them being at the right place at the right time, just, find out they have chemistry and want to do stuff together. And you do have to keep in mind that she did miss 2 or 3 episodes this season, so maybe she and the show want to make up for that, because she's one of the few veterans left that people recognize. So I do think she is the Spade Mikey straggler of the group of her and Kate and 80 who are gone. And yeah, I mean, if Kate and 80 are leaving, I think it might make sense for Cecily to leave along with them. But again, she'll be fine without the show. The show will be fine without her, but they're already doing good with her in the first place. So it's hard to say, but she has been on a decade, and she's had a great long run. So it's up to her, really. It's her call. But maybe it is time for her to move.
Yeah, let me go over some of the stats that we got so far from Cecily through her 4 episodes at the show. And I'll say we'll take out that one episode, the Chappelle episode, where she was only in the cold open and didn't really participate in the rest of the episode. So really, she's only been in 3 episodes this season out of 7. In episode 4, Jack Harlow, she's in 6 sketches. In the Amy Schumer episode, she's in 8 sketches. And in the Keke Palmer episode, she's in 7 sketches. So those are really high numbers as far as average sketches. She's averaging 7 sketches this season. That's a very, very high number, historically. Some of the greats of the show average 5 sketches, depending on the era or whatever it is. But that's very, very high for a season so far. And it's a small sample size. But I think I'm starting to get an idea of when Cecily is clicking with the audience and when her involvement in the show seems to be working and when it's not. And I could see it through the numbers themselves. And I do find that in a couple episodes this season, including the Jack Harlow and the Schumer episode, the rest of the female cast did not seem to be affected by Cecily's roles in the episode. So it, from a producer standpoint, Cecily does not replace Heidi Gardner. Cecily does not replace Chloe Fineman. They have their own particular roles in the sketches, and it makes sense to then add a Cecily Strong type to the sketch. However, in the Keke Palmer episode, it was very clear to me from not only a numbers perspective, but through the eyeball test, that a lot of the Cecily roles could have gone to a Heidi or could have gone to a Chloe. And, you'll see that reflected in the fact that Heidi was only in 3 things. Chloe had her worst night of the season in only 2 things. And that's the case where I think there's problems with having Cecily Strong, impacting the show in this way, because we are trying to move forward with trying to understand who these new cast members are and let them build on the show. And when you have a veteran replacing roles from a lot of the younger people that we're pushing to see a little bit more, then I think that's where the audience starts to, push back on having her at the show, because I'm not upset that Cecily Strong is in this season. I just think that there's certain episodes where she's probably used in a way that she shouldn't be at this point in her career.
Yeah. And I think that kind of goes back to the reason why I didn't want her in that sketch. Although some people in chat liked it, which is fine. But like Chloe, I think would have done great in that. Yeah. So anyways.
Yeah, when you do put it in the terms of, Cecily's been around for 3 different eras of female cast members, 3 different casts, and she's the last remnant of her era. It might be time for her to move on and let the newer people shine in an already overstuffed cast. So, yeah, I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah. And I'll say, just to put a light note on it, I think we are going to get a couple gems before the end of the season from Cecily, who is an all-time great. So I'm excited to see what we get from her, and I just hope that they use her the way that we'd love to see it. Okay. Let's take this next question from our friend Blood Meridian. And Blood wants to know, as this season's been going along, I've been noticing a lot of sketches revolving around brands, much more than last season, which had more of a traditional feel in its sketches. Whether practically doing an ad live on the air like that Arby's sketch, or making the brand the major focus of the sketch, such as the Hello Kitty piece in the latest episode. While these haven't been working for me as a person that enjoys more premise-driven and original sketch writing, these sketches are making me intrigued and question if they are SNL's way to try and be in the moment in our current age. So what do you guys feel about these sketches, and what do they mean? Thanks as always for the great work. Thanks for the great question, Blood. Casey, what do you think? What do you think about SNL producing more brand sketches?
Boy, that's a question. I'm gonna wing it on this because I feel like I didn't really have adequate time to prepare for like a 9-part question like that. We're still cool. It's just very dense. But I'll start by saying the Arby's thing I kind of tuned out of for like a couple different reasons, because first of all, it's like, who hasn't made fun of Arby's by this point? That was like a staple. Jon Stewart used to make fun of him on The Daily Show all the time, and that SNL, that sketch felt like it more should have been a Family Guy cutaway than an SNL sketch. And when you look at it more closely, it's like, yeah, they're making fun of Arby's for, giving us so many mountains of roast beef for so little price, and then people are just Mikey Daying it up like, what? And then, well, look at what Taco Bell's selling. Look at these other restaurants. Their prices are way out of whack. They give you more stuff for even cheaper. So we look pretty reasonable. That felt like an ad wrapped in a sketch. He's right about that one. Like I said this, I don't know if I said this on the blog, but that sketch did remind me of a tweet from like 10 years ago, I want to say. Someone tweeted the fact that Burger King can afford to sell you like 10 of their chicken nuggets for $1.49. That should concern you and not entice you. I was like, well, if that can be just a tweet, if that can be summed up in a tweet succinctly, why does it need to be a sketch other than to fill time or to placate a potential advertiser? So I see what Blood's saying. I'm not as big on that. The Hello Kitty thing is just, I don't think they did that to please any advertiser, because why would the makers of Hello Kitty be advertising on SNL? It's very much not a show aimed at kids. It's not on Nickelodeon or Disney. why would they advertise toys late at
Or
night?
cats.
Yeah, why would they advertise anything Hello Kitty at nights? I think they just picked Hello Kitty for just the sheer just balls to the wall absurdity of that, and they just ran with it. So, I don't really mind real brands being mentioned in sketches as much as some people, as long as there's an actual joke behind it, and they can maybe they show later they can take a joke, uh, like on social media. Maybe if some, I think I just thought of the Sarah Lee Instagram sketch from Harry Styles episode. That was again another sketch like Hello Kitty. That was just funny because of the sheer craziness of it. And Sarah Lee showed I don't remember what the tweet was or anything, but I remember they responded showing, yeah, we get the joke. We're proud to have been made fun of on SNL
Yeah.
with its history of satire. And yeah, if like a brand like Sarah Lee can respond like that, maybe Hello Kitty will respond. Yeah, as long as there's an actual idea or a joke behind the sketch, and you can tell it's not, you know, brown nosing a potential advertiser like Arby's or anything they've done, on Jeff Bezos or Amazon, particularly Joe stuff. I don't mind real brands being mentioned in sketches as long as there's a joke behind it. There's a point to it. Because, back a few years ago, they said there was going to be less actual commercial time on SNL and more like plans to integrate brands into sketches. And like, I thought of that Burger King drive-through sketch that Emily Blunt did in season 42. That was the closest thing to that. But that
Yeah,
again, that was
that
just
never happened, by the way. Just wanted to clarify. I know
yeah,
some of our listeners
exactly.
ask that a lot. Yeah, it never happened. Yeah.
I saw no evidence of that, and I'm not seeing evidence of that anymore. So as long as there's no evidence of pods and integration, I'm okay with real brands being mentioned in SNL sketches in a funny way.
For sure. Carlos, I feel like tackling brands is the same as tackling celebrities. Like if you have the right hook on them, then go for it.
Yeah, we say this a lot, I think, on the show, and I repeat it a lot, which is like, where's the joke? Where's the bit? If it's good, it's good, and it can be attached to a brand or a celebrity, and that's fine. Speaking really quickly of the Arby's, I think that should have been a pre-tape because it's got like Casey's saying, it's like a tweet. It's like a funny little thing, and even I laughed at like, oh yeah, I remember that idea that they can sell us 1,000,000 pounds of meat for $1. That's ridiculous. If it was a quick pre-tape, I thought that would have been fine. I don't think the Hello Kitty sketch should have been Hello Kitty. It didn't serve anything at all. So I think that was just like Bowen freaking out and Keke like freaking out. Like that's the bit there.
Wasn't the whole thing that they didn't know if it was a cat or a little girl?
A cat, a little girl, but they were saying it's a little girl, and it was just Keke and Bowen freaking out that it was a little girl because obviously it's a cat. So Sanrio's been around for years. That's why that also doesn't work because there's anime. There's it's a well-known thing that that's a cat. So I don't get that one at all. But I love their performance in it. But I'll say this about brands: like I'm so glad this question came up because I can mention one of my favorite sketches of all time, or two of them. Almost Pizza, incredible. And that I like the brands when they're fake brands, like the best. Almost Pizza is obviously not a brand. I hope it not. I hope it isn't. But so like for me, I love when they kind of like get close to a brand and just make up their own version of it. But to our point, really, Totino's, right? That sketch was amazing, or that series of sketches, and it wasn't really about Totino's. So it was just really weird and about the variation of like when the woman is making stuff for the guys and that kind of dynamic. That's what it was about, and she's in the kitchen and they're doing the game. So, and then the other one, the Italian restaurant, I love because that one actually mentions Pizza Hut in a positive way. And they're like, this is what we make, really good pasta meals. You didn't know. So you could call that an ad, but it's because, well, I'm talking about the Ryan Gosling one and Cecily just destroying. And so like, that's really funny because again, it's funny. That's it. Like, I'm kind of just saying what John's saying.
No, you did great. I mean, I agree completely. I don't have any issue with brand sketches, to be honest, as long as there's a hook. So, but I do feel like this Arby's one, and I think some people in the chat were asking who wrote it. I think it was Mikey and Streeter for this one. But what I really thought was weird, which I didn't get to talk about on Monday, but this was sort of a sketch wrapped in a sketch where you had this moment, which I think to me was my favorite Cecily moment of the night.
Do not shame me! Not in my debut Arby's commercial!
See, that had nothing to do with anything else.
No.
And it was a throwaway line, and it totally elevated the sketch for me. And I was like, that was it there.
Yeah. And it came out of nowhere. It feels like I thought I got what they were doing, and then that was happening. So
Yeah. Okay, let's take this next question we have here from our friend Jeremy. Jeremy would like to know. Okay, well, now we're going to turn our attention to questions about this coming week. So we had a lot of fun talking about Keke Palmer, but now we got Steve and Marty coming up. So let's take some questions, and we'll start with this one from Jeremy, where Jeremy wants to know, which cast member are you most excited to see interact with Steve and Martin? Oli Kenan is left from the last time he hosted, and I think he hasn't interacted with too many cast members whenever he has cameoed since. Yeah, so from my recollection, he's cameoed a bunch since 2009. I think mostly I think the only cast members he maybe has been in a sketch with is perhaps Cecily. I'm trying to think. I think he was with James Austin Johnson in that Five Timers Club sketch last season. But really, I don't think he's interacted with many of the cast over the years. Martin Short probably more than Steve in modern times. Casey, anyone in particular you're excited to see interact with our host coming up?
I'm going to say that I think Sarah Sherman and Marcelo Duran I'm excited the most to see at least interact with Martin Short, because they're the only two I can see being able to just match his energy, and for just Sarah Sherman to bring her chaos to a Martin Short sketch. I'm excited for that to potentially happen too. And I'd say behind them, maybe Ego and Bowen and Chloe would have. I think they'd just kind of gel well with some of Short's, campier Jiminy Glick like tendencies, so they'd interact well. Those are the cast members I'm most excited seeing next week interact with both of us, really.
Carlos, anyone you are excited to see interact with our hosts?
Yeah, I'll repeat what Casey said and say Sarah and Martin Short. Come on, that has to happen. It has to. They're both the same energy level. They'll out scream each other. It has to happen. We've got to manifest that. I think Steve Martin and Michael Longfellow, right? That seems like, because they were in the pre-tape. They were in the
one that came out today on social media.
So I guess that's probably what's coming with my idea for it, because I saw that and I was like, oh yeah, that works perfect. Like that could just be a show, like they're like back and forth. So I have a feeling that's going to happen on the show. And then I just want to see them interact with PDD. I mean, come on, it's such an opportunity. They're both so smart and so tenured and so incredible. To just throw them in some sort of Please Don't Destroy would be amazing.
That would be fun. And by the way, everyone's like, okay, we talked about new era vibes. It's not a new era. It feels old. It feels all the same. I keep seeing that online. Well, you know how you get some new era vibes when you see a host coming in and you're excited for all the new people to interact with them. That's, that's how you know that you feel like you could get something fresh on the show. So of course, if it's just Cecily and Kenan with Steve and Marty all week, then I guess we can be disappointed in that. But I think we're all excited to see what all these new people can do with the hosts. And I, in particular, agree. I mean, Sarah Sherman, I talked about this on Monday, really becoming for me like the feature star of the show. I am very pumped to get to see what she could potentially do with Steve Martin, especially. I know Martin Short seems to match more like, energy wise, but I'm excited to just see them together. I don't know. I can't wait. It's so exciting. All right, let's take this next question that came in from Sophie Kra09 on Instagram. Will Steve Martin and Martin Short have a musical monologue after the cold open? So a prediction from you, Carlos. Will we see a musical monologue this week?
Yeah, they like to sing a lot, don't they? I mean, I don't know. They could rely on the cast coming in a lot, I think, on their monologue. And I like the idea of them pulling off like the old timers, like just like poo-pooing everybody who comes in to the sketch. Like, yeah, we got it. Something to do with that I can see happening. I don't know about the song. They do like singing. I don't know.
Okay. Casey, do you think we're going to get some banjo playing or any type of song-a-log?
Well, I'm pretty confident that Steve Martin will try to play the banjo. He did a whole banjo number the last time he hosted, and everyone kind of made fun of him for how corny it was. But I mean, I think we'll see that. I mean, Brandy Carlisle's a musical guest, and I know they've toured together, so pairing Steve and Brandy would, even just for a banjo number, would probably be a great idea. But Martin Short, I mean, I can't remember when the past times Martin Short's hosted the show, I can't remember him not doing a big, sweeping, sprawling musical number for the monologue, and he always just kills it. Just brings a big song and dance energy in a fun way. Even to his age, it's amazing. So I'm excited to see what musical number Marty Short will bring this time, because he always just crushes it. He kills it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm very pumped. Okay, let's take this next question from also our friend Ike again. Would like to know, as excited as I am for Steve and Marty this week, I wonder if Short will be the one who is doing the most heavy lifting. Love Steve to death, but he has been out of the sketch comedy game for a minute. And Marty did have that short-lived variety show with Maya a few years ago, so he seems ready to go. What do you guys think? So do you think we're going to get, more Marty than Steve potentially? Carlos, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like yes is the short answer, because and everything I remember Marty being in. Can I call him Marty? Marty, can I call you Marty?
That's what we do.
Everything he's been in. Oh, remember that one where he was the Queen? He was talking to Bill Hader about the Queen's, what? Oh my goodness, that's funny. He fits that world. And he's been sketch forever. Like he started, early sketch. I just see it. Yeah, I kind of just agree, I guess, with the question. I think he'll do the heavy lifting. I think we'll see a little bit from Steve Martin, but I think it's going to be him mainly doing a lot of the sketches.
Casey, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think, one of my first thoughts was going to be, okay, maybe, Steve is getting a little older. He's going to retire after Only Murders in the Building. That'll be his last acting role. So maybe even he thinks he needs his best friend, Marty Short, there to prop him up. I mean, he's hosted, all-time classics in the 70s and 80s, and even he's been there a couple of times in the 90s and the early 90s and the late 2000s. And, they had their moments, but there was a bit of, what I like to politely call diminishing returns there. Maybe it's not that he didn't seem into it, but maybe it was the writing, but it just seemed a little tired, not quite living up to the hype we built up in our own heads. But Marty Short, he always brings it. I don't remember him ever having hosted a bad episode of the times he's hosted. I mean, I can say I just watched the 1986 episode, that the last time that Marty Short and Steve Martin co-hosted in 86 with Chevy on Peacock. And, it was great, but it felt like after the monologue, and the musical guest intro with the Three Amigos salute, I can't really remember a time when all three of them were in the same sketch together. It felt like I wasn't watching one episode. It was like they all hosted separate episodes that season, and you were just watching like a best of Star Maker tape of 86, 87 edited together with just those three. So, maybe, and Marty has been more active than Steve. But maybe Steve wants to do it because he wants to retire with one last SNL episode with Marty. So maybe he wants to go out of the sketch comedy game on top and give us just pull through and give us a real banger of an episode here. So to answer that question, maybe Marty will be a bigger presence than Steve. But like the last time Marty was on SNL as a cast member, it was with his friends, his buddies from college, Billy Crystal, Harry Shearer, Martin Short. It's like they made a pact to do the show together. It was sort of a all for all for one thing. So I think Steve knows that about Marty and wants Marty to bring that to possibly his last SNL appearance ever.
Yeah, and I will also mention that during the Justin Timberlake hosted episode in 2013, the last time JT hosted, we did have Chevy Chase, Martin Short, and Steve Martin all introduce the musical performance that night. So that was another time where we had them all together. And we'll talk about Chevy Chase in just one second. But I will say this is like sort of a theory that I have. Maybe this is probably the patron feedback show is the right place to put this out there. But I think Saturday Night Live doesn't necessarily want Alec Baldwin to be the all-time lead as host.
Oh,
17 times he's hosted, 2 more than Steve Martin. Obviously, there was that battle for many years and decades, but I think this is number 16. I think we're going to get number 17, health permitting in a couple years. And I think at that point, I'm not saying that we'll necessarily get 18 from Steve, but I do think that maybe at least he'll be tied for the lead. And then it's sort of like, okay, we can settle on the fact that Steve is the, one of the most hosted in the history of the show. So I think that SNL would like that if possible.
Interesting theory.
Yeah. It's more of a question of, does Steve have it in him for one more, let alone 2? Does he have it in him to just tie the record rather than just beat it? And is SNL like totally okay with saying, well, the all-time hosting record is tied between Steve Martin and Alec Baldwin? Are they going to say it's just Steve, or it's a big question mark the more you think about it?
Yeah, I will say for the record, that has been most talked about on Saturday Night Live in the history of the show. We have not heard about that in a very long time. So I wonder if that will be addressed potentially, or if Alec is sort of like persona non grata, though I believe last week during the there was a gala that a lot of the SNL cast and Steve was there, and Brandi Carlile and Alec Baldwin was there too. Like, I think he's still sort of in the family a little bit. So it's a weird situation. I wonder how that will, if it'll ever be addressed. That'll be something to look at. Okay, question from our friend Victor. Chevy Chase cameo, yes or no? So let's rapid fire this one. Casey, we're going to get a Chevy Chase cameo?
Nah. I mean, unless it's for him to celebrate the 25th anniversary of being banned from hosting, because, he was banned for a reason, if you know your SNL history. No, because I think even they're on the outs with him. I mean, when is the last time Chevy Chase has ever contributed something backstage to SNL that wasn't, completely traumatizing to someone?
Right. Carlos, what do
So
you
that's
think?
a no. That's a no. Then Casey, that's a no. Yeah, I also say no. It's just there's no reason. Not for the 3 of them to be together. He's not going to go out there. Where does he live? He has to fly. No, that's not going to happen. And also, I don't necessarily want it either. I don't think I'm kind of like, I'm not taking anything away from his earlier career and Fletch and all the stuff we grew up with, or at least I did. But yeah, not right now. No.
They've got Selena Gomez to do their show. They've moved on with her.
Yeah.
And who does have Chevy have left, really?
Yeah, I will say, and take this for what you will, I will say that SNL will probably make an effort to get Chevy Chase there. Will it happen? I don't know. But I think that they will try to make it happen if possible.
Wait,
before have it in him to make him happen health-wise? Yeah, maybe that's none of our business. He did make him some like Pittsburgh grocery store to do the lights from Christmas Vacation. So if he could do that, maybe he can make a cameo. Who knows?
Yeah, he has some issues because I just heard him on a podcast and he had some recent health issues. So that's another reason why. It's a sad reason. I'm going to say also no. But that brings me the opinion up Selena. I forgot about Selena. She's going to be a cameo, right? How could she not be?
Yeah, I think the only reason maybe that she wouldn't was just because she was on in May and maybe she just like, doesn't feel the need to. But yeah, if she was there, I mean, that to me is very fun. I think she did a fantastic job when she hosted.
Yeah. Okay.
She was on Fallon Monday. She was. I've just read. She said she liked being in New York. She was on Fallon Monday, so I'd be more surprised if it didn't happen at this point.
That's fair. Well, speaking of cameos, our friend Ken George Jones will close things out tonight by asking, there is a good chance this week's episode will be very cameo heavy. If this is an episode where much of the current cast has a minimal role, example, the Andy Samberg hosted episode, will you be disappointed or will you write it off as understandable given the circumstances? Carlos, what do you think?
I've kind of a boring answer that I've written down that I don't think there's going to be many. I don't think it's going to be a heavy cameo episode at all, actually. I just think in the cycle that we're in and where this episode lands, and Marty and Steve, wanting to take kind of full center as much as Steve can. Yeah, I don't think it's actually going to be a lot of cameos. I mean, I could be wrong, but I just don't think that's happening. I think they're going to really try to focus on the new cast. And again, keeping, like we were saying in the beginning of this episode, like the flow going and trying to figuring out what this season is. I think when you throw in a ton of cameos, it throws a wrench in the plan sometimes. Although I want Kevin Roberts, now that we've brought it up. That cameo, yes. Please, Larry David. That's the only one I'll say yes to.
Okay. Casey, do you think we're going to get a cameo heavy episode?
I mean, I would write it off as understandable, but I think maybe the current cast would be the most disappointed out of everyone. I would say just cameos relegated to Selena, Maya Rudolph, maybe Nathan Lane, or someone who had a supporting role on Only Murders in the Building, and maybe that'll be it. Because when I think of Martin Short's episodes with cameos, last time he hosted, he just ran around singing for Christmas, "It's the most wonderful time." And oh, look, in the hallway, it's Tina Fey, it's Jimmy Fallon, it's Tom Hanks, it's Samuel L. Jackson, Kristen Wiig. So, I mean, even for like a brief second, you don't want to just load it with that many cameos. Stick to maybe 3 at best, because that raises a question of what was a real reason besides them having this new show of getting Steve and Marty back? Because there's this article going around that people are kind of dunking on that says it's basically just, SNL may have a green new cast, but it's the hosts who are the problem. Some critic on Yahoo said, they're just not getting exciting hosts. They're getting like BC level stars until now, but questionable comedians like Chappelle and Jimmy. Someone just ranking on all the hosts and saying, "Oh, Megan Thee Stallion and Jack Harlow makes sense, but why do we need to see it?" So, I mean, was this to counter that type of criticism, or was this
Definitely
just
not.
because they genuinely all wanted to do this episode, just to have a really fun episode of SNL, not to just win back some of the older critics? So yeah, just if they can balance cameos between just cameos for the sake of cameos, and just enough cameos to give the new cast time to shine and not just wash out most of an already overstuffed cast, I'd be fine with that. But we'll see how they strike that balance.
Yeah, for sure not, because they had booked Steve and Marty for like a long time.
Right. And I was also going to say, no offense, Yahoo, but no one's going off of Yahoo's, whatever article. I did read that same article too, but like, yeah, it was booked before that. But yeah, I definitely want to see Selena, and I want to see Larry David, because Kevin Roberts just got to second base with a lady.
Now
Okay.
I'm just picturing how epic with Kevin Roberts sequel with Martin Short and Steve Martin.
I know. Let's do it.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
I will just say, to wrap things up tonight, that if we get a cameo heavy episode, I'm okay with it. I mean, I'm just so appreciative and thankful that we do get Marty and Steve for this one. I'm very excited for it. Whatever the episode ends up being, I think we should appreciate this. We don't know if Steve Martin will ever host the show again. We don't know if Martin Short will ever host the episode again. I mean, things happen. So, we got to just take this in as we go. There are some, Saturday Night Live is a show that I always believe is meant to be watched live. But if you're ever going to do it, this is the week to do it. Watch it live, enjoy the process, enjoy seeing what's presented to you on screen, because I think this is an episode that people will look back on for years and years to come. And saying all of that, we're never usually live on Wednesdays nights when these come out, but how about we share on screen, if you're watching on YouTube, the table read pick just came out with Steve and Marty there with the Christmas decorations on home base in the background. So just to get you a little bit hyped and excited, it's happening. So very, very fun to have Steve and Marty. So looking forward to having them on the show this week. And I really enjoyed having the two of you on the show tonight. I cannot wait to go back and listen to this one again. I really enjoyed the conversation. And we have some other fun shows coming up this week before we get to our hot take show. So tomorrow night, join us for By the Numbers. That is a show that will be hosted by Sammy K and our friend Mike Murray, with special guest Jamie Burwood. That will be tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And then on Friday, we're going to be releasing a special interview with a guy named Mike Streeter, and he wrote a book on Tom Schiller, who was one of the original writers and film producers on Saturday Night Live, wrote some very famous films and produced ones about, John Belushi, Gilda Radner, Phil Hartman, Jan Hooks. And we got to talk about that and his experience creating the book, getting to interview people like Lorne Michaels, Chevy Chase, Dan Aykroyd, Peter Aykroyd, a lot of fun experiences he had back in the day creating this book. And it's just been released on hardcover. So we got to talk to him, and that'll come out on Friday. You got to listen to that as a fun little prelude to the weekend. And of course, we'll be back on Saturday night for the Hot Take Show, and it'll be a lot of fun to break down that episode. Carlos, where can the listeners check out everything you are doing? Thanks for joining us tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me. Awesome conversation. You can't see it because my lower third got cut off because we switched to 3-panel view. But there it is. That's where I'm at. I do the TikToks. I make the comedy on the TikToks. I also do it on Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. But follow me on TikTok. That's my name on TikTok. I make sketches about Starbucks. Weirdly enough, I have a cup. I wasn't planning on that. Talking about brands. If it's funny,
check it out.
That's funny, right?
Every time you're on, that happens. All right.
Wait, now it's a bit that I'm going back to. I apologize.
Yeah.
Follow me on TikTok.
Recurring characters. Check out Carlos and everything he's doing. Casey, thanks for joining us tonight. So great to get to hear from you. Where can listeners check out everything you got going on and your wonderful blog?
Yeah, well, you can follow me on Twitter at Killingsworth27 while Twitter's still around. I'll be tweeting out links to my blog every week there. You can find me at KCK27 on Instagram. I'm not as active there yet, but you can find me on Discord. I've got many servers. I started my own Weird Al Discord server. I could send you an invite to that, and I could be a gateway to other SNL Discord servers for you there. And hey, I'd also like to plug my upcoming appearances on That Week in SNL with Andrew Dick and SNL Nerds with John and Darren. They have not invited me yet. We have not scheduled any, but
Nice.
Like Carlos and Keke told us this past week, you got to manifest stuff if you really want it. So catch me on those and Rabbit Trail with TJ.
And I'm manifesting myself working with Sarah Sherman very soon too. So let's all do it. You're on those shows too.
Yes, and I will make $1 million. Okay, well,
all right. Oh, you went to money. All right, you went to money. Okay.
Yeah.
I see where your head's at.
Very excited to catch all those appearances down the road, Casey, and everything you got going on, Carlos, as well. Thanks for the chat, for joining us on this Wednesday evening. For Casey and Carlos, my name is Jon Schneider from the Saturday Night Network. We will see you next time, everybody.